As we encounter constriction, externally and internally, we make two orbits around it, at least for the purposes of this conversation. You have the problem, right? The pain. And in the first orbit that we make around the problem, around the pain, that which gets in our way, that which blocks us, frightens us or angers us. That which we want but cannot connect with fills us with frustration, with hopelessness, with pain. Right? That which violates our boundaries fills us with hopelessness, with rage, with despair. That which leaves us fills us with sorrow, with sadness, right? And the things that just build up and happen too quickly and we can't deal with them overwhelm us, depress us. They form layers and layers of unprocessed, undigested energy, and it just gets in the way of the freedom of our expression, right? That which invades us, harms us in some way, leads to sickness, to collapse, to impairment. And that's the first orbit. It's an orbit around a pattern of energy that is discordant with our well-being. And it's the orbit of the childlike state. Every child is a victim of the giants around it, a victim of the unknown. Right? The ego is born into the place and doesn't know who to trust and who not to trust. Doesn't know what tastes good and what tastes bad. Right? Is a very small infant in relationship to very large patterns. And so, if mother doesn't provide the milk, the only thing the infant can do is scream. And if mother suffocates the infant from screaming, the only thing the infant can do is to dissociate, to try and stop that reflex to call out. Right? So this is the orbit of the victim, the orbit of incompetence, of the unknown. And it is a descent. It is a journey down into various sources of pain, various sources of constricted energy. Now, the second orbit, right, we go through a period of rebellion, of dissociation, of criticizing, of judgment, right, of fight, flight, and freeze. And the goal is to survive something that can kill us. That's the first pass around this constrictive energy. Now, the second pass, and we could actually make three passes. We could say that the second pass is the rebellion, is the criticism, is the judgment, is the protest, is the search for justice, right? But it's the third pass that is interesting. Because the third pass only happens when we grow big enough to encounter the same space as an adult, as a bigger one, right? So you can think of the experience of a 1-year-old, of a 2-year-old wandering along the ocean and being swept out and half drowned because the child wasn't supervised and the waves were too big and the 2-year-old didn't know how to swim. And this is the tumult, the violation. As that relationship of shock and trauma moves into adolescence, we move into the critic, into the judge. Those fucked up parents, they shouldn't have left a 2-year-old, in 10-foot swell. What were they thinking, right? And where were the lifeguards? And what was this? And, it's just completely fucked up, right? Everyone's to blame, everything's inadequate. And that is a path out of victimhood and into righteousness, into criticizing, into blame, into punishment, protest. We're going to pass a law. We're going to raise money for lifeguards, etc. Right? So this is the path of antipathy, the path of protest. Now, the third path cannot begin until we grow out of the second path. But it's a very interesting alchemy, because before, that which stood in our way made us angry, right? You're trying to pull forward in traffic and someone moves into the space just as you do. It's enraging. Then you try and go over here and then the person pulled up here. It's frustrating, right? You tried to apply to school, this school, they said that they needed this and this and this. You went to get that, but then there was something in your way. It's frustrating. It's all these things in our way. And we rebelled, right? How fucked up is this? I want no part of this. But then there is a return. We grow, we mature, right? We mature in a variety of ways. The pain, the suffering, the frustration, the depression, the terror, the shame helps us develop and prioritize things that need our attention. The adolescent rebellion further develops muscle, it develops voice, we develop vision. It should be this way, but it's this way. So the adolescent is also part of the cycle of development. This is how it should be. This is how it was. This should change, right? We protest, we hold signs, we speak to the authority, we write a letter to the editor, etc., and we're protesting. Now, that also builds a certain amount of muscle. We develop a certain direction to point towards, as outlined by the critic. Now, the last pass happens as we mature and grow big enough to relate to the object again in a different way, from a new perspective. So this is, maybe the adolescent, I don't like swimming. I hate the water, right? I had a horrible experience when I was 2-year-old. I nearly drowned. I want nothing to do with the water, right? But then there is the return as an adult. And now, with the discipline, with skill, with awareness, now the 10-foot surf becomes exciting. I want that big surf in order to test my limits. That's oh, wow, did you see that wave? If I could have rode that wave, that would have been so exciting. Those girls now growing up into women that what are they talking about? It's so weird. It's uncomfortable, right? Now it's, if I would enjoy spending time with this person in this way, with that person in that way. Oh, that looks like an interesting, interesting thing. Before, I would be so scared and frightened of being cut down by that sarcasm. Now that sounds a little bit entertaining. Maybe we could laugh. I can see enjoying the sharpness of someone's wit. It's not going to puncture me. Now it's going to add a little bit of vitality, right? And so this is the interesting pivot, because what once blocked us and frustrated us, now with mastery becomes a source of pride and accomplishment, right? So what blocked us transmutes into pride and accomplishment, a sense of confidence, a sense of mastery, right? Now, what's interesting here is that there is no pride, there is no accomplishment without this same bundle of energy, right? So this thing nearly kills us. This thing serves as the basis for the antipathy, for the rebellion, for the dissociation, for the criticism. And now the same thing becomes the basis of pride. Look how far I've come, that I enjoy this wave. I can swim in that water. I can go on that date. I can have that conversation. I feel accomplishment. I feel pride in my accomplishment, in my competency, as measured from the gap between the infant response, between the adolescent response, and now the adult response. So what blocked us becomes a source of pride. What hurt us and caused suffering becomes a source of self-compassion for the part of us that suffered, which becomes the springboard of empathy for the suffering in other people. Meaning, right, when you lost a child, because these iterations, by the way, they happen in a grand level with the child, the adolescent, and the adult, but they also happen throughout life. If you're a parent and you lose a child, you go back to the childlike state. I can't deal with this pain. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with this, right? When big events happen, the first pass is the pass of the victim. I don't know how to, nobody told me it was going to be like this. I don't know how to deal with life with chronic fatigue. Nobody told me I wouldn't be able to get out of bed, and what am I supposed to do, right? They say, go to the doctor. You go to the doctor says, pay us a lot of money and we'll do some tests. I don't want tests. I want to be able to get out of bed. Plus, how am I supposed to do all these tests if I can't get out of bed? Are you going to come to my house? No. You've got chronic fatigue, which if you didn't have chronic fatigue, you could go and live your life. But since you do have it, we're going to ask you to get out of bed and do extra tests and extra work to make extra money, which if you can do all that, you don't need the doctor in the first place, right? This is fucked up, right? That's the first pass. The second pass, the anger, the articulation, the awareness of what's wrong. This is fucked up. Like, why do you dump a pile of bricks on someone the moment they fall down. And that's the cult answer as to how to deal with it, right? You have this one problem, so then everyone gives you all these other problems because you have this one problem. That doesn't make any sense, right? So the next wave is, righteous indignation, is, outrage, is criticism, is protest, maybe to start educating. Look at this book. Read what's going on here. This is nuts, right? But the third pass over that object, around that object, is compassion. Look at all the helplessness and the suffering, right? How was I supposed to deal with the death of a child? They didn't prepare me for that in high school. They didn't prepare me for that in college. They didn't prepare me at work. Nobody prepared me. Right? You're going to need this book. You're going to need to do this. You're going to need to have an emergency fund for when your child dies, right? No, that just never came up. So I have so much compassion for the pain, the overwhelm, the suffering of me, the younger me, the overwhelmed me, the sad me, right? Now, what's important to understand here is that the compassion is impossible without the suffering, right? You were born, you were treated like a king and queen, you got a great education about useful topics, you enjoyed your life immensely, and then you feel compassion for yourself for having such a great life? No. Compassion is the third wave, right? The wave of being taken under, of being traumatized. The wave of righteous indignation and protest. Then the third wave of in response to suffering is compassion. Which also requires growing bigger than the pain. If you are in the pain in the first wave, you cannot have compassion for yourself in the wave. There's a loud voice saying, get the fuck up, do something, fix this, or we're going to die, right? Because if you don't survive the first wave, you die. If you get tumbled into that 10-foot wave and nobody was paying attention and luck isn't on your side, you're dead, right? There's no second wave. And if you protest and get knocked down, for speaking out, re-traumatized, and you don't get to grow through that stage, you're dead, you're shut down, you're dissociated. Right? So you have to survive the first wave, and you have to survive the second wave, right? In certain countries, at different points in history, if you point out, Stalin, you killed my entire family. This is not right. I thought this was supposed to be of the people. You're dead, right? Right? You hold up an empty piece of paper, protest against the war in the Ukraine, right? Off you go to some mysterious prison, right? So you don't survive the protest. But if you survive the protest, the act of protest, the risk of protest, the vision that comes with protest, with criticism, because within criticism there is an implication that there is a better way. And in the process of flailing about in search of that better way, we develop muscle and we survive. We become bigger than the pain, bigger than the trauma. And that is the foundation for the third spiral, the third circle, the third revolution around the object, which is compassion for the pain and suffering. Now, that compassion for the pain and suffering that we have felt, that we understand, becomes the basis for empathy and compassion for all human suffering. The Buddha, the archetypal ideal of compassion, right, the symbol of that compassionate state, is not possible without the first and the second wave, because there's nothing to be compassionate about except suffering. Right? No one in the history of humanity has felt compassion for another's bliss. Oh, you poor thing. You're in ecstasy. Oh, I understand. Let's get you out of there. It's terrible, right? No, compassion is the third revolution around pain and suffering. And the deeper the pain and the suffering, the deeper the compassion. Now, that thing that made you sick, right? The thing that drove you crazy, that separated you from yourself, that drove you insane, mentally sick, that thing that tore you up with despair, that thing that separated you from the world, is unlovable, it doesn't belong, right? Every single infant that encounters injustice, suffering, and trauma, which all infants do, encounters a world in which they, the self-centered infant, it's all about the infant, is unworthy, is unlovable, is unloved. In the third revolution, as we find those unloved parts, those unlovable parts, those banished and separated, fragmented parts, those crazy parts, and invite them home. Right? No, there's nothing wrong with you. No, right? The whole family program of sociopathic shame and narcissistic ignorance had nothing to do with you. I feel compassion for your pain, but I also love and welcome you home. I love and welcome you back to the fire, back to awareness. I banished you at 6 years old because I was with morons that didn't know how to love a child, that didn't know how to love their own inner child or the external expression, right? They knew how to shame, they knew how to bury, they knew how to hit that child. Don't do that, you'll make us look bad. Go to your room, right? They knew how to do that. They didn't know how to love. Right? And I didn't know how to love you back then, so I banished you as well. Don't come out again, you get me in trouble. Don't speak, right? Mom doesn't want to hear that. Shut up. No. I wasn't thinking anything, right? I've banished the unwelcome. The shadow in the family becomes the shadow in the self, and I cut myself into all these little bits, and I bury and hide the bits that are not welcome at the table. And I survived because I buried myself, because I lied, because I pretended that I had nothing to do with that, right? Me? look at boys and want sex. Oh, how disgusting. That's a good girl. You focus on your studies and you can carry on living at this house. You need a loan, little this. Okay, right? So you buried your lust. You buried this part and that part. Right? So in this third revolution, homecoming, welcoming, seeing, integrating, restoring the cut limbs of the psyche. And what is there? Joy. The joy of coming home. The joy of healing. The joy and happiness of it making sense, right? Before I encountered this revolution and I couldn't meet my needs, right? Every time I liked a toy and wanted to play with it, my sister took it from me. And the only criteria for taking it from me was that I had it and I was enjoying it. I could never take it. I could never have it, right? And then I got older and I didn't have the money to have these toys and this, that, and I was supposed to put this and this, and I didn't have it. And now, through success, through competence, now I have it, right? I wanted that. Now I have it. I wanted to go to this place. Now I can go there. And I feel happiness. I feel a sense that my needs are met. I can get some of the attention. I can get some of the love. Right? So there's the joy of healing what was cut, wounded, and broken. There's the happiness of being able to meet the needs that were not met. Before, I felt boredom because I couldn't say the real thing. Every time the teacher say, anyone have any ideas about this? And you say, yeah, why are you talking about this and this? And why are we ignoring what's going on in the back of the room, right? Don't you have eyes, teacher? You haven't seen this bully beating up this kid every fucking single day? Why are we talking about see cat run rather than what's going on? Don't you talk to the teacher like this. So, out of the room. Go talk to the principal. Bring your parents in. Oh, I guess we can't actually talk. I guess we can't think, right? Right? I guess we aren't welcome, right? So, anyone have any questions, any comments, anything at all? No one? No. None of us. We can't think, we can't feel. None of us, right? We don't want to be bullied. So, what a boring existence, just hiding and burying what's there. So then comes voice, right? The exuberance of, yes, I like doing that, and no, I don't want that. And, this may go through a few iterations, right? We may find a partner that goes into critical parent as soon as we do anything authentic and useful and, go through it all over again. But eventually, we decide that speaking the truth is more interesting than the boredom, the depression of suppression and lies and political correctness. Right? And then the boredom is replaced with excitement and aliveness, right? When you say, I want this, I love this, this is what I like. And when you grow big enough to not be intimidated by the oppression of the cult, well, you will be fired, you will be canceled, you will be this. Well, right? I'm not going to work for some bullshit company, right, that's too dumb to differentiate talent with political dogma out of proportion. So, hooray, right? We're going to get another job. We'll do work we'll start a company, right? And in this company, no political correctness. And we'll make it exciting, right? So the boredom gets replaced with aliveness. The depression, right? Also, right? Those layers and layers of, I'm going to get in trouble if this and that, those layers and layers of thing. No, No. There's none of that. Maybe this isn't a good fit. Let's part ways. No, I don't like that. Can we deal with that right now? Oh, we can't? Well, when you're ready to deal with it, let me know. I'm going to carry on this hike by myself. You don't like my singing? There's the door. Here we go, right? Aliveness and flow is emergent out of that depression, out of that awareness of that constantly layering in all the rules and all this stuff doesn't work, right? Supposedly, if you follow the rules, you'll be happy and survive and live happily ever after. No, I'm depressed. I'm frustrated. I don't know whose rules on which days to follow, and I'm not being myself, right? So you have liberation. You have a sense of freedom. You have a sense of exaltation from the release of that depression, that prison of correctness, right? Now, we can go through everything, the despair, the hopelessness, it's never going to change, becomes the hope. It is changing, and it's going to keep getting better. And it's going to get better because I'm going to take the initiative to make it better. You know, my parents can continue to do whatever they've always been doing. That is indeed a hopeless state, waiting for my parents to get it, to respond. Oh my goodness, when is it? Is it going? Are they both going to die before they get it? Really? Oh my goodness. Decades it's been, right? Right? No, they don't have to get it at all, right? I get it. And I'm going to do something about this so it becomes hopeful, right? The despair of the future becomes the excitement of the future. Now, you get the idea. And here's the thing. This object here, the problem, the thing, the pattern of energy, stays the same. The first wave nearly kills us, and for some people it does kill them. The second wave, we learn protest and criticism, and it still doesn't change at all, or very little. You know, you go on a march on Washington, you do this, you do that, and, you know, a few little token gestures, but it's not enough, right? It doesn't give you back that lost childhood, that this, it's not enough. But everything that we value in life, pride, confidence, gratitude, right? What we were so bitter about before, we feel grateful about now, right? The trapped feeling that we felt so ungrateful for, so resentful of. I can't speak up. The moment I speak up, then you give me a lecture, and if I don't listen to the lecture, you threaten to leave me, and I don't want you to leave me, and so I have to listen to your goddamn lecture, right? Ugh, right? That moves into the freedom, right? I don't want to listen to your lecture. Off you go, right? Let's have some space, and let's see what comes into the picture, the gratitude for space, for freedom, for presence, right? And the frantic, I'm not enough, this and that. I am enough, right? Everything that we value, joy, happiness, gratitude, compassion, excitement, healing, and competence, emerges in this cycle in response to this energy. So here's my question. Assume we delete this, right? Assume we delete this. And in the deletion, there is no awakening, there's no trauma in childhood. There's no awakening to the injustices, and there's no sharp awarenesses of the evils and wrongs of society, of the world. There's no vision that then emerges to counteract that injustice. It is like this, it should be like that. School principals shouldn't fuck their students. They should be, they should be helpful, right? Not bribe them for grades and, this is so fucked up, right? The vision, the antithesis of the malady, of the problem, of the issue, doesn't emerge. The experience of accomplishment, the experience of gratitude, the sense of growth, the change, doesn't happen. Now, if you delete gratitude, if you delete criticism and vision, if you delete trauma, what do you have? Right? You have an infant, a child, in a relatively naive world that looks at the world that's perfect, that's out to please them, and enjoys going through life as a delighted child. But there's no consciousness. There's no joy. There's no healing. There's no appreciation. It's a dream. There's no evolution. There's no revolution. There's no pride. There's no growth. And so we look at this energy that nearly kills us as bad. That's bad parenting, and that's dangerous water. Right? That's bad churching, that's bad schooling, that's fucked up, right? That's bad, right? And what we need to do is change what's bad to be more perfect. If the world would be perfect, that's good. But we're talking about a cycle of life here. As the child becomes an adolescent, and as the adolescent becomes the adult, and as the adult that is able to love themselves and enjoy the pride and mastery becomes the spiritual adult, the transcendent adult that now loves that and gives that to others. As we enter the final state of Buddha consciousness and have compassion and understanding for all things, the Buddha does not exist without this packet of energy here. The Buddha does not develop. The Buddha does not exist. The Buddha does not emerge. The Buddha does not respond or have anything to respond to. Unconditional love is meaningless when everything's perfect. Right? When everything's perfect, you were never humiliated in front of the class. Everyone always understood you from the moment you were born. You don't need to develop unconditional love to accept that. It's automatic. I love everything about my life. But because I love everything all the time, I'm not even aware of it. And I don't say every moment, I love everything, I love everything. It would be useless. It's built in, it's assumed, right? It's an unconscious default. the conscious choice to love with less and less condition is a testament of mastery and muscle precisely because it was never ideal from the moment we were born. It never was, right? The wind was a little bit too strong when we were nursing. We were just about to drift off to sleep on Mama's breast when, Grandma rang up on the phone and woke us up, and then we were put down a bit too violently on the bed, and then our sister is always annoyed that we're getting the attention and pokes us when nobody's looking, and nearly ruptures an organ, right? Glares at us. What did we do wrong? Right? What happened? Right? How can you love that? Right? That is the challenge. That is what evokes, what challenges us to dream about a deity that is big enough to accept and love these things. And it happens in the third pass with ourselves and in the fourth pass as we extend that out to everyone else. Once we love the forgotten, broken, repressed, denied portions of ourself, we start meeting those unloved portions out in society, out in the world. We say, I know you, right? Yeah, I asked that was a part of me that I asked to be homeless for a long time. Now you're homeless out there. Doesn't work, does it, right? I was miserable until I invited that part of me back home. And our culture will be miserable until someone invites you back to your home. Right? And so the fourth pass is the societal pass. The fifth pass is moving from, the social entrepreneur, the nonprofit visionary, right? Towards God got us all that is, right? Towards an acceptance and a love of all that is. That is a God. That is a goddess. That presence that can accept and love and honor and welcome all that is. And what's the hardest part to love and welcome? It's this wound here. It's this blob of energy. It's this pattern here. That's the hardest thing to accept, to love, to welcome home, to feel in our body. I don't want to feel that. I want another eclair. Right? That's easy. God, give me another drink. Right? Oh, it's coming up again. Give me another drink. Right? That's not love. And that's not because we can't, I can't think of the time I had my first kiss and enjoyed myself all day. Give me another drink. I can't deal with that. No. I can't feel the smallest miserable pain. Again and again, right? Oh, my best friend being shot in Vietnam. Why did I kill that little girl? Oh, give me another drink, right? It's the tightest, smallest moment that is the doorway to God, Goddess, all that is, right? Because you cannot be and accept all that is when you are blocking the tightest moment. You cannot accept and become the God, the goddess, until you can bless the tiniest, most painful, miserable moment in all that is as far as you're concerned. And so, in the long run, and we may be talking another million years of evolution, right? Within the fabric of lifetimes, within the fabric of human consciousness, reaching that point where we start seeing people going through these full evolutions in a lifetime, right? And of course, life has all the time in the world, right? Life's been around, 20 20, 30 billion years. It's just getting started. What do you think life will be like in the next 10 billion years? How about the next trillion years? Right? We're headed for high potential. It doesn't matter if this planet goes up in smoke, right? Third World War, species kills itself, sets us back a few billion years. Okay? If the sun is still in an optimal rotation, another few billion years, we're back. If the sun isn't around, life has another trillion planets capable of producing and supporting some form of life, and creates more all the time. In the next trillion years, there will be more intelligent beings, all of which face the imperfection of what is, and some of them will become deities as we think of that word. The one capable of knowing all, of seeing all, of loving all, of being all. And the last step of the deity is feeling, loving, and accepting the most painful door, the most painful moment in eternity, the worst possible point in the possibility field, right? One of the interesting things about possibility fields is they cover, a possibility field is a woven net that includes the very best thing that can happen. And by the way, you don't have to be a deity to enjoy your meal at the best restaurant in the world, with the best waitress, with the best guests, compliments of the chef, in perfect health, in the greatest point in history of the greatest planet in the universe. You think that's hard to love and accept? No, that's easy. Anyone can do that, right? But on the other extreme of the possibility field is the worst possible thing that could happen to you in the worst possible way, at the worst possible time, in the worst possible place, that is absolutely doomed to turn out miserably as you could possibly imagine. Your children being raped, your wife being tortured, you're being humiliated, you're being programmed to do the killing yourself with electrodes and someone laughing at you rather than having any humanity. That is part of the possibility field, right? And that takes a Buddha to love, to accept, to own that part of the Buddha. Yeah, I can be that fucked up. I can be that filled with hate. I can be that filled with pain, that filled with rage, that unconscious, that cruel, that unlucky, that horrific. I can be that. The one that feels it, the one that causes it, the one that participates it. That is part of me because it's part of the possibility field. You see, and that is the connection with the deity, with the Buddha, right? You take the very worst thing. And the first revolution around this is, I hate God. I hate life. I hate existence. I hate myself. I want nothing to do. I want to die. I want to kill myself. I want nothing to do with this. I want it to end. I want them all to burn in hell for eternity. Right? We go around those revolutions for, hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, right? If it's really, really bad, fucked up, I don't want to look at it. Then when we finally escape, I don't want to face it. Just get it out of here. I never want to think that thing again. I never want to feel that way again. Get it away from me. Right? That's the next wave of suppression and denial. Then we do the counterweight, like I'm going to be this, not like that. That's disgusting, how I was. That was, evil people, evil me, whatever. Now I'm like this, right? You grow, you go around those evolution, right? But eventually, that cycle of growth goes through its orbit and we come round to that place again. Oh, I don't want to see it. Okay, I'm going to see it, right? And after however many revolutions, it is the unconditional love and acceptance of that defines the God-Goddess moment, right? Because you can think of this doorway as the doorway to the deity, the doorway out of the knowledge of good and evil, the doorway out of language, the doorway out of the limitations of polarizing consciousness. You can see that doorway. And we are the actuality field, we are the probability field, we are the possibility field of all that is. It is innately and inextricably connected. It is us. We are it. We are part of a possibility field in which every single thing is connected inextricably to every other thing. The possibility field is like a tightly woven sweater, and that thread runs through the entire sweater, right? You cannot get to this stitch over here without this stitch here. It's all one thread. As the energy goes through the entire mathematics of possibility, it will pass through every single point in the possibility field. And when it gets stuck, when we get stuck, is the point we say, no, I won't do that. That's wrong. That's bad. Fuck that. Right? That's wrong. That's bad. I will not accept that, right? Okay, so that's where we get stuck. Right? I do not accept the part of me that is that. I don't accept this part of reality. I'm not ready to deal with this. I'm not willing to deal with this. That's wrong. That's bad. I will not tolerate this. We've all had our parents react to this and say, no, go to your room. I never want to speak to you again. Blah, 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 blah. I'm leaving. I'm this. That's it, right? I'm past the limit. And every person, every consciousness has that limit. And that limit slows everything down, freezes everything up, freezes everything over, and everything stops until we're able and willing to start up. It's like a train track, right? Train track's coming along, going all around here. It gets to some point around here, and we say, no. Choo-choo-choo, 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 no. The train can't continue until it goes through that. We can't go through it until we own it, recognize it, digest it, allow the reactions we have to it, and then we can continue the journey and continue the cycle, right? It is only as we move through the entire possibility field with flow that we can walk through the door of the deity. Now, life is not in a hurry. We're not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry. You can go through 1,000 lifetimes in righteous anger. Make it 10,000, 7,000, right? Many as you want. But righteous anger and it is disgusting and has nothing to do with me is not taking the train all the way through the possibility field. The deity, the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-loving, all-doing, all-being, the One, because that is the deity, the One. Before we descended into the knowledge of good and evil, before we fell from grace into the polarizing delusion of separation and suffering, we were one with all that is. And as one with all that is, all included the worst possibility and the best possibility. But what's interesting is the worst possibility is the doorway into God. Oh, let's hang out over here. There's fresh strawberry ice cream. Yeah, you're not going to reach deityhood by accepting that, right? That's not where the doorway to the deity is. The doorway to the deity is the drunk, lonely, shamed, abused, addicted, chronically liar, self-hating part of ourselves that thinks the entire world is fucked up because of them. Now, if you can love that one, you will be given and shown another one that's much worse. It's much more terrible, right? And if you can love that one and that one, you start allowing the brain activity that allows for the awareness of one, the awareness of being one with God, Goddess, all that is. The transcendent consciousness cannot transcend something in the state of resistance, in the state of attachment, in the state of stuck. And the attachment, right? You cannot take this through the door. You cannot take language into divine consciousness. And if you're attached to that is bad, that's language. I am not going to let this go unpunished. That's language too, right? Well, you've got to stay there in language punishing that. But while you're doing that, you cannot be one with all that is, right? And that's fine, right? There have been a few human beings in the history of humanity, passed down in legend, Christ, Buddha, perhaps some others, that spend a certain amount of their time there. Then something horrible happens, right? Their disciple spilled tea on them or what, right? The Chinese invaded Tibet and started machine gunning the most beautiful things in the world. This is horrible. This has got to be stopped. And so goes the deity, right? So goes the deity. It is the very last, worst thing that you can possibly imagine that is the doorway, the last doorway into all that is. May take us 1,000,000 years. There's no rush. And mentally grasping it is not even close to doing it, right? I have a fit when something on my desk is missing, right? So, obviously we're a long way away from being able to accept the most horrible thing with love, with compassion, with mastery. And yet that is the journey. That is the journey. The journey home. Now, there's one important and very big omission, and from the conversation I concluded last night, and I didn't see it until just now. And I'm wondering if you can see what it is. You see, in order to become free, in order to transcend the possibility field, right? The circle in which all things are possible. We must transit through two doorways, right? In order to leave the circle. The first doorway we've explored is the release of attachment, of identification with the worst thing, right? And this is very easy to do with dissociation, right? That's not my business, that's not my problem. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about owning it 100%. That's my daughter being raped. That's me being raped. That's me raping. That's me experiencing this hell again and again and again. Right? So that's the dark doorway. That's the doorway of I want to judge, I want to attach, I want to avoid, I want to escape, I want to numb, I want to do anything but enter the small feeling of all that pain, of all that terror, of all those lies, and let go. Right? But there's another door, right? Because on the other side of the possibility field is the most luminous, the most miraculous, the most graceful, the most transcendent experience that can fit within language. Miracle upon miracle upon miracle. Gift upon gift upon gift. The goddess, the God, friendship, ecology, beauty, truth, goodness, like you can barely imagine. That must also be owned. Right? That must also be owned as me, as my daughter, as the giver of such an experience. I gave someone that experience. I received that experience. I gave that kind of love. I received that kind of love. And there is again, right? The one is used to preclude the other, right? If you have not gone through and accepted and let go of the worst, if they knew this about me, they would not let me through. they knew I thought that, if I knew I voted this way, if they knew, right? If they knew this about me, that I was capable of such, they shouldn't. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of that grace, of that possibility. I'm not worthy because if they knew, they wouldn't give it to me. They wouldn't allow it. There would be an uproar. You that did this are now doing this. If they knew, they would not allow, they would not accept. And so I'm not going to accept either, right? And that's partly the constriction of other versus me, right? What other people think about me is more important than myself, right? But that's part of the possibility field, to be other-centered. But even beyond that, having watched 10,000 people mimic the meme of unworthiness, could I have the courage to be worthy when others are not? And so until we go through the one and let go, I can go up to my horribleness and, I'm so horrible, I'm terrible, I don't deserve, I'm terrible, I'm this horrible person. But can I let go, right? Can I let go? Can I go up to that and let go? Forgive, meaning give it up. Or, I'm so wretched, I'm so horrible, right? Because without giving that up, there's no space for what is perhaps more difficult, more challenging to embrace, which is, I am this beautiful, I am this incredible, I am this loving, I am this magnificent, I am this fortunate. I allow grace. I allow a deep connection with the divine. No, how could I be, right? So that completes the circle. Letting go of the darkest, making room for the lightest, and then not clinging desperately, don't leave me, don't change, letting go of that. That is the exit from the possibility field. A possibility field refracted with numbers, refracted with language, a possibility field within the framework of the consciousness that emerges from language, and a return to the ecology, to the whole, to a sense of connection with the next level of God, Goddess, all that is.